Yep, it's going preparing to live stream.
Okay, cool. All right, and
So
then
then,
just
yeah,
send that in the chat if you can.
yep. Once this goes into YouTube. Yep, it's going preparing to live stream. All right. YouTube.com/. I'm gonna mute the thing. Sorry. So how do I mute? Okay. YouTube.com/watch V equals FLHU V
Might be
H
able to pull it up too.
I 8J.
Here, dude, I got it. Don't worry about it.
No, I just did it. I just sent
Okay.
it. Yep, it works.
Okay. All right. So we'll give everyone like a couple minutes or a minute.
Oh, you know what I have to do? I might put, because this is probably going to pick up, my speakers are going to pick up on the mic probably. So were you hearing feedback when I was talking? Were you hearing it double at all?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we're good. Do you want me to pull up
Yeah, the teams.
Yep.
Or just the page in general. Did you get to go through everything?
Nah, not really. So it's mostly going to be you. I'll just add some color. Like I looked a little bit, but
Giant Man Choi, Ramil Tapia.
not G-Man, it's G-Man.
Yeah. Yeah. He actually do me one favor real quick. Can you go to Mike's team or can you go to no, actually go to the draft recap. I think it's in the league drop down. I just want to see something real quick. By team up the top there. Scroll down. Up. Okay. 2, Altuve, 4, Perez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Tyler Melee. Okay. I want to remember that for later. Hold on, stay on that real quick. Altuve. Perez. Okay. All right, I think we should be good now. All right. So what's up, everyone? Welcome to the 2022 Olsen's Fantasy Baseball League predictions. Just initial takeaways from the draft. And it'll be kind of, I always do the theme. Last year was keepers prevail. This year for me, I think it's like, I feel like a lot of people miss the ball just on the draft. So again, everyone take this lightly. Nobody get butthurt. Mostly everybody's been in here forever. As I was going through and doing my predictions, I kind of just realized like how many people really feel like just missed the ball in the draft. Overpaid for a lot of players. There are a lot of players that were taken really early, which we'll get to that, I don't really understand all that much, to be honest. So that's kind of my theme here is that, like, I just feel like the draft was I don't know, different. I thought the slow roll draft went better a lot this year, to be honest with you. Last year it took us almost 2 weeks. Like I think we were a day shy of 2 weeks, and we were literally like less than 48 hours up against the season. So I'm happy it took us, I think, exactly a week this time. For the most part, it went really smooth. My turnaround time is always super fast. Probably never a good thing for me. It's tried as a commish. We found that loophole last year within ESPN, which was really cool. So now I could enter the picks at the same time, but just between the picks, the Excel sheet, everyone's rosters to, make sure their board is going. I think my turnaround time was pretty fast. Yours was pretty fast. Jimmy was pretty fast. Orc had a couple times in the beginning where it was just a little long, and then he got good. Jorge, a couple here and there. Soriano was super quick. Mac was pretty good. He was on top of it on vacation. I thought that would be a disaster, but it was actually very helpful. Yeah, so I actually thought it went smoother this year. I know towards the end it just gets to be like a lot. So it's kind of just my initial takeaways from the slow roll, and then my theme this year, as you see as I go through the teams, is really I just thought a lot of people missed the ball in the draft. And then another thing, like I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I was telling Paz earlier, I went back and listened to both our shows last year in regards to this, not our radio shows, but it's crazy. So if each of us have 35 players on a roster, 10 teams, that's 350 players. I probably went through like 150, 175 players. I swear on my son, I like hit on like 99% of them. There was like two guys that I thought, Gossman, and there was someone else that I said was going to have like, I thought was going to have an awful year that had a good year. I don't remember, Robbie Ray maybe or something. But like for the rest, like the Hunter Renfro's and things, like I like really, really hit on the ball. I don't know if that pays dividends for me that I saw all that and that's why I won last year. Or hopefully that happens again this year. But that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool to go back and see and saw that I really like kind of hit the ball last year. So I hope to do the same thing this year. There's something else I want to touch on. Oh, and then like just in terms of predictions, like this is kind of how I know at least how I do it. And you had brought it up a lot in the last show, and I didn't really. It was like this is kind of how we see the teams now. Like it's not necessarily where exactly they're gonna win. Um, so like as you see later on, no one in our head-to-head air has ever won back-to-back years. So I went back and checked the history. So for a while we were doing head-to-head, then we moved to total points, and then we moved back to head-to-head. In the head-to-head air, no team has ever won 2 years in a row. So that's like always an interesting thing. So and then there's like stats that will back up, and we'll get to kind of the rankings, but like we both had Jimmy 10 last year just based on his team, but like statistically, Jimmy's been in the league for probably 5 years now, maybe 6 years, and has maybe less, maybe 4 or 5 years, and has never not been in the playoffs. And then you have Mike, who's been also in it 4 or 5 years, I believe. Then when we had two leave for one for personal reasons, one for an extended vacation, they both joined in together. And I don't think Mike has ever gotten in. So like you'll kind of see like while you have teams ranked where they are now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not a great manager out there throughout the year and can put themselves there. So those are just a couple of things I want to touch on. I kind of have a decent memory of where everyone finished last year, so you don't have to worry about flipping between the pages. I know that was like a big ask in the chat last year, as people wanted to know like where someone finished last year. So we'll make sure we touch on that. Pause. Give me your intro.
Yeah, I thought the draft went pretty well. Like overall, I think that I don't know how many years you've been doing a slow roll draft as compared to a like a live draft that night or one night during the year. But yeah, I thought it went pretty well. I know that myself, when you get to those later rounds, I have no idea some of the guys that I'm drafting, or what to really look for in those picks, because I'm fairly new to this league. I think I've only been in, this might be like year 4 or 5 for me. I've only made the playoffs once, but I feel like I'm getting better at fantasy baseball in general, but it's still not my forte. So yeah, I mean, just from a personal level, I know that I need to brush up and get better at this, but I feel like I'm getting there. And then just overall, I'll see some guys that people draft, and I literally just have no idea who they are. So that's a shortcoming on my on my part, I guess. But it's funny, like you see these names come in, and it's like I don't know what team that guy plays for. I don't know if he's been in the league for 10 years or is in the minors right now. I have no idea. So
Yeah, and that was another point too I want to make is that I thought like, and I think I wrote that in some people's teams is like, there's so much unneeded prospect heavy selections this year that we'll definitely touch on that. Like it's just something I really don't understand. All right. So without any further ado, same thing as always. We're gonna go 10 to 1. First we'll start with me, and then if you think anything's outlandish, I say pause, feel free to jump in. And then after I go through kind of my thoughts and why, then I'll get into, and then we'll go to Paz, and Paz will give his thoughts on the same team and where he has them. Paz, to his, while I hit on 99.9% of the players last year, Paz actually did way better in terms of he had Bob at 4, who ended up being runner up. And I had Bob the last team out, I believe. Regardless, I had like 8 through 4, like all separated by 172 points. I think I saw in the last thing. But I basically had Bob out. He was my last team out, and he was your 4, so he plays me there. We both had myself at 2. I won it. Third was O'Rourke. We both had him at 1, I believe, or you might have had a Jorge at 1, and I had Rourke at
yeah,
1.
I think I had Jorge. I think I had Jorge at
Yeah,
one.
but I mean, you definitely got way. You were, if you put the number next to the where the team finished, and we did a differential, you definitely hit way more on the final outcome than I did. So while I hit on the players, positive on the team. So hopefully we replicate that again here. All right. So without any further ado, unfortunately, I have you at 10. So I did like a little comment too. So for pause, I have him at 10. I put hurt by last year's trades. And despite having one of the better drafts, it doesn't show up. So I thought of all teams, you're one of the teams that actually hit on your picks. Unfortunately, obviously people don't have access that are watching the transactions or may not remember. Paz traded 2-4-6 or 2-4-8 to as he was just outside of the playoffs last year for Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and some others. And I don't know if did guys just get hurt or did they fall off that you ended up like losing the head-to-head battle for the last spot in, right? Or
Yeah,
didn't you lose like two with 2 games left? You lost like a game or
I
match
think
just
I
showed up.
lost to I forget who was in like last at the time, but I lost to whoever was in last. I think with 2 weeks left, and then it just screwed. Like I was in sixth pretty much like when I made that trade, and I was
Yep.
expecting to, or when I made those two, there were a couple of trades that I made, but ultimately I did not end up making the playoffs, and like Gibson fell off, and then I think Lance Lynn ended up on the DL. And I tried to make a deal for a hitter and it didn't work out. So my team, I ended up, falling short, so
Yeah.
yes, like you were saying, my not having a second round pick, not having a fourth round pick, and I think I didn't have an eighth round pick either, kind of hurt me here.
Yeah, so that unfortunately shows up this year, but this is kind of what I was touching on like where teams that can move. Like you have some pieces here, and you really did a good job with what you had allocated. Missing those high picks are big, but I like the trade you made, acquiring DeGrom and Hendricks. People don't realize like a big thing, and this is something I talked to O'Rourke about earlier in the year or prior to doing the keepers, is like he has Bueller. O'Rourke tends to play for later in the year. I always tell him like, dude, just worry about winning this year. And, both him and I will be in a situation come up this year where I'm going to lose Alcantara and he's going to lose Bueller. And, obviously we will trade them to somebody because someone is going to want them and be able to use them, but we both won't because we chose to use franchise guys this year. And for me, I'm kind of about setting up like, let me win this year. You were kind of in a situation where Bieber's up next year and you already were in a situation down 3 picks. So now you acquired DeGrom, who only has 1 year left. As long as his elbow stays fine, he's top in my opinion, the best pitcher in baseball. And then now you'll be able to keep Bieber. You could send a Grom somewhere else, or, or whatever. But this gave you the options to like compete this year, but also give you the ability to, be set up for next year, moving Bieber there and kind of having forever. So I like the moves you did. I know it costs more picks, but it kind of gives you options this year. Like you could really just if it doesn't go your way early, you could pack it in early, and you have a lot of pieces that people will take. So I have you as the ninth best infield, the seventh best outfield, and the 10th overall offense. Starting pitcher, I like that you went out. I thought you went, I feel like you usually go offense a little bit. Maybe I've taught you a little bit with the pitching, but I have you as the sixth best staff or sixth staff. RP rankings I could care less about last, but that does not matter to me at all. I could care less. And then overall pitching would be 9, and then overall ranking for 10. So let's start up with the offense. Grandal, nothing. Scope. So my only question with him this year is he going to lose out on a good amount of points if Torkelson takes over at first base? So Scope's been getting points for playing first base. It's huge for defensively at first base. They get just so many putouts, assists, what have you. Torkelson, you would think, is going to come up at some point in time. Does Scope lose out on a decent amount of first base points after he comes up? Luke Voigt, don't know what his status is. Is he a full-time player? He's been injured. He likes to play through injuries. But I would think that 2 injuries the last 2 years has really hurt his output. Chisenholm, his value for what essentially is being I gotta move this box. I'm like trying to look at what ESPN has him at. There we go. Jazz Chisenholm, great for the round of picks. So we have extensive keeper league. He's way down there. At this point in his career, is he a starting fantasy second baseman though? I'm not sure if he's a starter at this point in time in his career. He's up about for the prototypical sophomore slump. And I think both his points from ESPN at 416 probably emphasize both of those things. So a sophomore slump is probably coming here. And at this point in time, is he ready to start? Like him as a player, he's going to be a piece for you for a really long time. I just don't know, is now the time. With that being said, on the flip side, the counter argument is you're kind of in a situation where this is a year that if you wanted to give away, you can give away with him just starting at second base for you. So who cares? You know what I mean? Jimenez, I need to see so much more from him before he could start on a fantasy team or be owned. Brian Hayes, he had a dreadful year. This is one of the top ones I predicted last year that people didn't agree with me on our show. He also already got hurt in spring training again. And at this point in time, based on his minor league injuries, last year's injury, and now another spring training injury, is this somebody that we're going to have to be worried about who's an injury plagued player that got a lot of hype and is just going to be injured his entire career? He also still has nobody next to him, Brian Reynolds. And I just saw probably this morning or this afternoon that the Padres are in deep conversations to acquire Reynolds over to San Diego. I hear now that they're getting not so great news on Tatis, that this is maybe more to a 4-month, 5-month thing instead of a 3-month thing that they predicted. So I don't know, maybe since Tatis, I forgot they had to move somebody from the outfield to short, right? So now they have an open outfield spot. So I don't know, maybe they're trying to bring Reynolds over there to secure that lineup or bolster the lineup with Tatis being out for a longer period of time than expected. But if Reynolds is out of there, now you have a guy who's constantly injury prone and has literally just absolutely nobody at that point in time, because it's basically Reynolds, Hayes. They sent O'Neal Cruz down, who's the top 25 prospect. So there's just no one there. Let's see who else we have. Mondesi, he's either, in my opinion, he's a bench player, not ownable. We still don't know the full thing. At the time of we were drafting, he was said to be in a split timeshare with Nicky Lopez. In the last 3 seasons, he's only been able to play 60% of his games due to injury, and he's never finished above top 150 in offensive points league. So at the time we were drafting, they were split. Him, Nicky Lopez, and Witt was playing short. Now I see the Kansas City Royals GM is talking about putting Witt in an arbitration situation, which we'll talk to later when we get back to Mike's team. So now maybe Mondesi starts at second and Nicky Lopez is at shortstop until whatever the date is this year. Usually it's somewhere mid-July. That changes my opinion a little bit. I didn't see that till tonight, so I don't know. But for me, in a split share and never being able to finish top 150, he's been hurt constantly, 60% of games the last 3 years. That's I don't know. That's just he's just not for me. Um, Story. I didn't want him as a Yankee due to his splits. He simply just really just can't hit away from course. Like I know that was one of our conversations when DJ came over to the Yankees, but like his splits weren't that vast of a separation. Like Blackmon and Story, their splits are really bad. I think his point projection reflects that at 497. Like he used to be like a right underneath 600, 610. Actually, I remember when we were listening to it, he was 617 last year projection. Because I remember when I was listening to the show because we talked about it as your keeper. So if his point projection by ESPN and what they think he's going to score is 497, that's like a big concern for me at this point in time. I think this is his last year with you. So if he does fall off due to the lack of course field, like it's a good time to kind of let him go. With that being said, second base is super, super thin, as is kind of shortstop. So having like a 500-point second baseman is definitely not the end of the world, especially since I'm not really a fan of Jimenez. And he'll be eligible there in, I don't know, 10 days, 10 games, whatever, what have you. So Crawford, sneaky good pick. Also very undervalued in my opinion. 409 is insanity. He was one of my top 5 offensive players last year. Despite his age, his new hitting coach taught him a new stance, a new swing path, and he's been back-to-back years now, way better output than he ever has in his career. So I don't really care about his age. 409 is so low. And I think that would be a good piece for you. Stanton, while it looked like he was like had a massive year last year, he really just returned slightly under like one Miami season. So he's older, he's hitting more ground balls, he's not hitting the ball as hard, and the Yankee lineup is worse. So no injury last year. Stats would probably say there's one coming this year. Eloy, expecting a bounce back year from him, back-to-back super small sample sizes, the ladder off. The ladder of his injury. I think 450 is probably one of the biggest mistakes that ESPN made last year. I think he's more of like a 600-point player, especially in that stadium and the lineup. Yaz, this is something we talked about last year when he was Bobby's keeper. He was super lucky in 2019, probably overvalued, but then he was very unlucky last year, and now I feel like he's undervalued. So meet in the middle would be like a nice backup player. There's just so much youth there. The problem is if a decent fantasy season for us and drawing that line in the middle of a very lucky year and a very unlucky year is like a bad season in the MLB. And they just have so many guys waiting in the distance that you have to wonder if he gets off to a slow start again or more like last year's start. Is he going to be benched for somebody else that's coming up there? Because they have a lot of guys coming up and a lot of guys still in the top 20. Adolis Garcia strikes out way too much to own in the points league or to be owned by someone like me who I'm big on consistency. And there's stretches where you literally have to watch weekly if he's like ice cold or he's scolding, and let alone starting him. Mookie, he'll be fine this year. That lineup is just freaking retarded, insane. Best lineup in baseball by a country mile. He'll lead off of that lineup. Played through 5,000 injuries last year, literally. And I think he'll be back in the top 10 overall. Trent Gresham, I had him. I'm really unsure what to think about him. He was atrocious for me last year, played hurt. And then he was also hurt like on a lot of different injuries. It wasn't just like one thing. He's got no Tatis behind him for, like I kind of just mentioned earlier, a minimum 3 months. They're saying now maybe even to 4 to 5. So, and now I see that he has a thumb problem already into spring 2 games into spring training. So another guy like, oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's the next guy. Oh, no, Tatis behind him. So now he's going to see. I think they'll aggressively pitch to him because there's not as much behind him as there was before with him leading off and Tatis batting second. Nimmo, he could potentially lead off again for the second or, in my opinion, third best lineup in baseball, but he's always hurt. So I mean, like, does that even matter? And he already has a thumb problem 2 games into spring training. I just think there's much better out there. Stanton, I touched on. Miguel Sanu, despite his top raw power in baseball, he's the only player to strike out in 1/3 of his at bats in a baseball. Also, apparently, he showed up 25 pounds lighter this year, so he may yield first base spot and DH, and that would hurt him even more. So if he goes just strictly to DH because they're talking about bringing up the young kid to play first base, you're going to drop like 150 points. He's projected 300 now. Is he going to be a 150-point player? Questionable. This is the other guy I got wrong last year. I thought he would have a huge season. He didn't. I would hope for a rebound. That was a notorious sophomore slump last year. And this would give you the ability to replace Mondesi, who I talked about earlier, who, I don't know now. Now, who knows after I just saw that GM article, but if it ends up being Nicky Lopez at second or in a split share and Witt at shortstop and they don't go the arbitration route, yeah, Bomb, you could slide up there. Lineup got better with Castellanos. I think he'll be good this year. Hicks, like, do I really got to talk about? He's always hurt. And I have this feeling he's kind of in a squeeze type of role. So for the guys that don't know, a friend of mine is fighting for the last bullpen spot on the Yankees. His name is Ron. And Soriano knows who he is. He's one of Vin's best friends. And so I've been watching a lot of spring training games. He's been coming in for an inning or an out, whatever. And the other day they interviewed Boone and they asked him like why he's been playing this Judge center field, Gallo left field, Stanton right field, and he said he wanted to see that more often this season than a standard lineup of Stanton at DH, which kind of alluded me to like, is Hicks in this a little bit of a squeeze out role where, one, to keep him healthy, and two, maybe to get better players in the outfield offensively, therefore like opening up the DH spot for like DJ or Torres, which is something we've been questioning all offseason, like how are these guys all going to get reps type of thing. So that's another concern too. Bench player though for you. It's kind of all I've on the offense. If you go down to the pitching, DeGrom, my only concern with him is not being able to pitch through the semi-torn elbow ligament. Many others have done it without getting Tommy John, Verlander, Tanaka, Charlie Morton. Who else? There's a bunch. So there's a bunch that have been able to make it through without having to get surgery. He rested it all. I guess you really don't know until he gets into 100% live action. But that would be my only concern with DeGrom. If not, like I said, best pitcher in baseball. Hendricks, like I love Hendricks as a pitcher. But he was like not the professor, which is his nickname. Last year's advertised. He's notoriously a slow starter. He likes to pitch when it's warm. He doesn't like pitching in the cold. Maybe if he gets off to a slow start, like he usually does, that actually ends up benefiting him because then he will get shipped somewhere warm. Like they're already talking about Contreras being out. Hendrick could be somebody else on the block. Like maybe the Yankees go get like a Hendricks Contreras combo for prospects. And then that maybe is better, gives him more shot to win. Cubs are projected like the 4th worst team in baseball this year. So, the spring, however, though, I saw has like not given us any more hope that he returns to form. But he's still formidable. It's just the team's not as good. And I don't know. Bieber, my only concern with him is that maybe he's a product of the spider tack. I know this is something that you and I talked about. He was really good to start last year. 2 days after the spider tack controversy, he suddenly has a shoulder issue out of nowhere that none of us heard about. And then he sits out the entire year. It's odd to me. I know I talked to you back and forth. I'm like, is this guy not going to come back? And I was like, he was completely fine the day before that or 2 days before he had the shoulder issue, he threw like a complete game shutout. So that whole thing was super odd. Is he one of these guys that's a product of that spider tack, like kind of like Cole was, and he just tried to figure something else out and then claim shoulder? Very odd situation, just something to monitor. It's kind of the only notes I had on him. Evaldi, the only question with Evaldi every single year is his health. He exceeded 150 plus innings only one time in the last 6 years. Skill set is there, but it's tough to pay the premium that you did. I thought you got him a little bit earlier. But if he falls into that, any of those last 6 seasons, which statistically would say he does, but like he has great stuff. He has a huge skill set. It's just about him staying healthy. Gray, I feel like with Gray, you know what you're getting, and that's why I never get him. It's an up and down roller coaster. It's either a shutout or a blow up. He's not my type of pitcher, but formable for you. McKenzie struggles with control all the time. What's crazy to me is that the Guardians were thrilled that he came back from AAA to throw like a 4+ ERA last year. So to me, that's like no thank you, and a points-based nightmare. Like I don't know why they were so excited. Like, oh man, he threw great in AAA. He came back for us, and then he threw like a 4.17. I mean, that's what we're getting excited about from our prospects. Not for me. And then last but not least, Yoshi, very interesting pitcher to monitor. He has like an okay skill set, but he's on a team that actually wins. On the flip side, Seattle is notorious bottom five stadium for hitters, and now he goes to Rogers Center, and I think they're playing 40 or something, maybe 41 games at the minor league place, and both of those stadiums are notoriously top 3 hitting places. So do the points even out, like with him getting more wins at the cost of him giving up more runs just by pitching in a hitter's park now? And his home run average is already high, so this is make it worse. I don't know, but I liked him. I wanted to grab him, but that would be my only concern with him. So that's kind of my take on your team at 10. Give me your thoughts on your own. I know it's hard to give your thoughts on your own team, but give me your thoughts on your own team.
I don't disagree. I think to go with your first point, yes, I think I've learned that pitching probably carries you further in this league than hitting does. So I tried to place a little more premium there. But yeah, I mean, look, I was hamstrung a little bit by not having 3 of my top 8 picks or whatever it might be. I actually didn't have 4 of my top 10 because I gave away my 10th
That's right.
in the DeGrom Hendricks trade. So yeah, I mean, and then DeGrom ended up being a keeper in round 3, I think. So I only made 5 picks in the first 10 rounds of the draft. So yeah, I was hurt in some places, and I think my roster shows it. So yeah, I'll have to try to make some moves, be a good GM this year, and like you said, if it looks early like my team is not going anywhere, I could start prepping for next year.
Yeah, and I mean, not a bad thing. All right, for 9, I'm going to do this to him again, but I really don't like his team, and that's Jimmy. For me, as you'll see, as I kind of go through his team, I wrote the note for him would be hard passes, tough things to ask of his players, and very prospect heavy. And this kind of something I wanted to touch on the intro is just like, we have one prospect spot, essentially, pitching, hitting, and then one frequent flyer spot that I guess you could put a prospect in if you want to, or the everyday Joe. But for the most part, everyone's everyday Joe expired this year. So that's going to be taken unless you break it. So like, I don't understand why there's 3 or 4 teams in the league, maybe even, I think 4 teams in the league who have like 4 or 5 or 6 prospects, which to me, it just ends up being a waste of picks because it's already hard enough. They pan out like 1 of every 10. You don't get a million Wander Francos. You don't get like a million Alcantaras, who's not, I mean, he's a top 20 pitcher, but he's not like, off the charts elite. To hold so many on my bench I would never do it. I just don't know. I don't understand the thing. So Jimmy, look, every single year he's been in the playoffs, he's made it. So he'll probably end up being in the playoffs. I don't know. When I look at this team, the way it is right now, I don't like it at all. So that's kind of, or where did you have yourself paused, by the way? You forgot to note that.
Yeah, I don't really like my team much. So yeah, I'll probably have myself in the last slot as well.
Okay. So anyway, so I have Jimmy, his notes, hard passes, tough ask of players, and prospect heavy. So starting at the top, Contreras, he's in an awful lineup around him. His K rates increased 3 straight seasons, which is bad for fantasy. Despite an increase in barrel rate and exit velo for 3 straight seasons, his production's decreased in those seasons respectively. The Yankees, I don't know. They claim they were making calls for them. Who knows if the rumors are true or not? But kind of Wilson, Contreras, and Hendricks trade to Yankees happen, maybe, and that would probably benefit him. That would, I mean, obviously benefit him. There's nobody left in that lineup at all. Joey Votto, obviously, I don't need to talk about Freddie Freeman. He's the best of the best. So that's a very nice piece. Joey Votto quietly had a great season last year with adjustments to his swing path and foot placement. Lineup is still good, and they hit in a tiny little sandbox. So I think 422 as a projection as a first baseman when you're getting 100 to 150, even if he spells DH, you're going to tell me that Joey Votto, with the changes he made in the season he had last year in that little sandbox, is going to only have 270 offensive points. Like, come on, that's insanity. Cronenworth, I love Cronenworth. Paz always, not always, but Paz will ask me like what type of softball player I am. If anybody ever want to know, and anyone asks me, like, this is literally me in the softball version of a baseball player. I love him as a player. He's literally my carbon copy. He has no power, high contact and line drive rate, and plays multiple positions. I don't play shortstop all that well, and I don't really play first all that well. Third, I don't know. I don't really play any of those all that well, but I play multiple positions, and he starts at second, and that's my spot. And we literally like the same type of player. Love him there. Cesar. I should actually hold on. I'll do a Jimmy's thing real quick. Fifth best infield, last in outfield, which really where things take a turn. Eighth overall offense. Worst starting pitching staff. Fourth in bullpen, which is irrelevant, and last in overall pitching, which puts him at ninth. So Cesar Hernandez seems to finally be on the decline. He's someone that I usually always get. O'Rourke always makes fun of me about it. He's usually a staple bench player for me, but he's currently Jimmy's starting second baseman, which Cesar Hernandez at this spot in his career is not a starting second baseman. He will lead off in front of some nice pieces, but he did nothing last year in front of an even better lineup. So he's also in a much, much, much better pitching division now. In my opinion, still the best division in baseball back-to-back years. And like Wheeler and Nola, Eflin, DeGrom, Scherzer, Carrasco. The Braves have Fried, and Soroka's probably back, and Ian Anderson. Like, if you couldn't do it in that crap division last year that has no pitching, because the pitching that's in that division is on your team, I don't know what else he's going to do at the top of this lineup, which has arguably less weapons and is just a gauntlet to face day in and day out. Brian Anderson is literally, it cannot be currently a starter, and frankly not even ownable. So I don't know what happened there. Devers super solid. That lineup got better, and he'll just continue to be awesome. Lindor, like maybe the most interesting player to watch in fantasy baseball purposes this year. He had back-to-back dreadful seasons. This lineup is loaded. You could argue that they're definitely in the top five. I think Toronto's the best. The Mets are there somewhere in the top five. San Diego with the healthy Tatis up there. The Dodgers are absolutely loaded. So, you're talking a top five offense here. Do you draw a line between like 2017 to 2019 and 2020 to 2021 and hope you meet in the middle somewhere there and get like he used to be an 850 point player, and I don't know what he finished at last year, probably somewhere in the 500. So like, is he really like a 600 point guy? That's a nice shortstop. 600's a good shortstop. But he's a pass for me until I see it. Franco is a great keeper for Jimmy. Probably will have him for life in a late round. Would be a little bit concerned about how Tampa holds their just players back overall, and a little bit of sophomore slump there. He was really good last year, so that's it. But I mean, like, there's not much to talk about. Yelich. Like Lindor, basically the same thing, like 2 straight dreadful seasons. In addition, now appears injury prone, kneecap, back, ankle, and then back again. His production is down from 0.50. This is a crazy stat, from 0.50 to 0.279 points in all respective offensive categories. So that's a massive drops in a lot of offensive categories. So I think like 449 is spot on, which is crazy, that much of a fall off for Yelich. And this is where I just think like when you start in the outfield here, this is where like Jimmy just kind of takes a hit. Renfro, like I love him in Boston, and as some may remember in last year's prediction, like I touted him and Paz disagreed with me, but I don't love him in Milwaukee. Like it's great for power, but Renfro was about abusing the monster. Like he has the swing where he doesn't barrel up the ball, and it's a routine fly ball that hits off the monster and turns into a double, an extra base hit. In Boston, you're not doing that in Milwaukee. It's still just a lazy fly ball. So to me, this is a massive regression here, and just I don't know if Renfro. I think Renfro goes back to like the fill-in bench player that he was in previous years prior to going to Boston. Clinic reminds me of kind of like a Glaber Torres type, or like really what I kind of just mentioned before I did Jimmy's team was like 80% of the top 10 prospects yearly. Like one of 8 or one of 10 like actually ever hit once a year, and they all get a shit ton of hype and it doesn't pan out. So like this is another crazy one, kind of like I mentioned about Tristan McKenzie on your team, is like Clinic was awful. I forget what it was, like 0 for 45 or something when he first came up to the majors, or something insane. Then he goes down to AAA. He hits like 290. He comes up to the majors and he bats 242. And now like everyone's like, oh, he's back up to full force. Like 242. If 244 is back in full force, I just honestly I don't know what baseball is anymore. So he's a hard pass for me. Yelich is a hard pass. Renfro, hard pass. Schwarber, love the move to Phillies, the hitter's ballpark. Looks to be in a great lineup again. However, I literally feel like I say every single year that Philly has a great lineup, and then they're nowhere to be found. So the output has never been Kyle's concern. It's just always honestly how much he'll play in a season. He's another one who's just never healthy. Grechik, I don't know, man. I don't think he's an ownable player at this point, like let alone starter. While the trade to like Colorado looks great, Toronto's same 2 stadiums were number 2 last year. So Coors Field was number 1 for hitters, and Toronto was number 2. So is that really like that much of a boost, him going from Toronto to Colorado? Like I don't think it is. And now he was competing for playing time there, and now he's going to Colorado and competing for player time here. So does anybody actually like think that Colorado has a better lineup than Toronto? Like it's not even close. Like they're not even in the same hemisphere. So I don't know. This is a not ownable for me, and a yikes. And then Connor Joe, like he's in the competition with Grechik. It's another starter for Jimmy that he doesn't have an everyday role. So the position he plays, Colorado went and traded and replaced all 3 positions he plays with 3 new guys. So could he be a spell guy? Maybe. Yeah. But like he wasn't good enough last year doing that. So we're going to start him this year after he wasn't good being a spell guy. So Jimmy's entire starting outfield, in my opinion, are just not ownable players. So this is a major concern with me, and tough ask out of a lot of guys. And then like Miguel Cabrera, I understand that the universal DH will change, and so Jimmy can put one of these guys. I don't know who would be up for it. Maybe Freeman or Votto ends up getting it sooner rather than later. But like Miguel Cabrera has been on our free agent list for 2 straight years, and now he's going to be in a starting spot for Jimmy's lineup. That's kind of scary. And then the bench, like kind of like I talked about earlier, just way too many prospects. Like, why is Adam Frazier is just like, I don't understand that. And Jimmy picked him so early. Like I don't think Frazier was on my sheets. Julio Rodriguez is a prospect. Alejandro Kirk, backup catcher, whatever. Dominic Smith is like at the 3rd or 4th timeshare position of all the players. Can you scroll down a little bit? Jose Miranda, like another prospect. So like, I don't know what are we doing with 1, 2. So, he only has 2 on the offensive end, but like 2 prospects on the offensive end. Like, I don't know. For me, that's kind of a pass. And then going down to the pitching, Rendon, I like to move to the Giants, but like, what are you actually going to get from him? He's hurt every single year, typically more than once. He's thrown for 588 last year. That's out of the top 50 in our league. It's a tough ask for one of your best starting pitchers. Darvish, after he struggles from after he struggles last year, I'm unsure how he's projected as a top 25 overall player finish. That's beyond generous. And again, tough ask as your ace of the staff or second best. McClanahan, great pitcher, but he's on the Rays. Like they're obsessed with openers and babysit their youth. So for the entire second half last year, he's only allowed to go 5 innings. If you're elite through 5 inning limit over 30 starts, it's only 500 points. So last year, 172 pitchers scored 500. So that's Jimmy's 4 starter. Pablo Lopez, like much like Rendon, great stuff when healthy, and that stuff has improved each year. But he has now gone 5 years without being able to surpass 26 start due to injuries. So that's a hard pass and a tough ask as your five. Kershaw, like the rest of Jimmy's staff, 21, 27, 26, 29, 10, and 22 starts the last 6 years is how many he's been able to go. So he's clearly got a serious back issue. Like, what can you ask for him to do, or how long can you ask for him to stay healthy? And then Carrasco and Sandoval, like Sandoval had an okay season. Carrasco had an awful season. They're both coming off in-season and off-season injuries. And at this time, I can't really count on anyone or expect really much of either. So that's kind of my take on Jimmy's team. I really, really don't like it at all. So go ahead, pause.
I think this is by far the worst pitching staff in the league. So while I don't like my team, it could just be me. It's tough to, or I find it hard to grade my own team sometimes. So if I did not think that my team was bad, I think that this is by far the worst team just because of the fact that the starting pitching here is dreadful. You're not getting a full season out of Kershaw. Musgrove, I've never been sold on. I know he was good last year. I think he has a regression this year. Rodon, he had a breakout year last year. I don't necessarily foresee him repeating that. But I think he'll be solid. I think Rodon will probably end up being the best pitcher on this staff here. I think Darvish is probably on now like the downturn of his career. McClanahan, like you said, we don't know what he's going to do, how many innings he's going to pitch. He probably won't even start the year as a starter. Who knows? Pablo Lopez, not great. Sandoval, I don't even know who he is. Carrasco, coming off cancer and the injuries that he had last year, I don't foresee him putting in another full season because it's been a while now since he's actually thrown a full season, being as though there was the COVID season and he had his issues, unfortunately. So yeah, I just think because of the fact that this pitching staff is so bad, Jimmy's going to have to make some moves to upgrade here, and that might force him to have to give up a couple of his hitters who might be the ones carrying his team, so to speak. But I will say I do think he has the best shortstop combo in the game. I think Wander Franco, if he's not the best shortstop in the league, people might say Trey Turner or whatever you want to say. Wander Franco is very easily a top 3 shortstop in the league, and I think he's going to be the best player in baseball very, very soon. Once Trout sort of starts hitting his career downturn, I think Wander Franco is the guy that's taking that mantle and not giving it up for a long, long time. And I think Lindor has a nice bounce back season.
All right. 8, I have surprisingly O'Rourke. And my note for O'Rourke is, where's the infield at? So I don't think O'Rourke has ever missed the playoffs in our thing. So again, like this is kind of like Jimmy, where like they're here now. I don't know where they'll be later, but for O'Rourke, I have the 10th infield, which is the worst infield in the league. The second best outfield, which will carry him, but because the infield's so bad, it's a 9th overall offense. 5th starting pitching, 9th bullpen, don't care, and that leads him an overall pitching ranking 7, which leads him to the 8th overall team. So from the top, Torkelson, it's Ork starting first baseman. He's expected to start in AAA. I saw this morning after a slow start to spring, and he's still recovering from an ankle injury that he had in the offseason. His Work's replacement right now for first base is Lamonte Wade Jr. Like, that's bad. Hoskins, I'd expect to see him overscore his 416 projection. I think that's pretty low for him. I was hoping to draft him much later than Ork grabbed him. However, I feel like I overrate the Phillies offense every year, so I don't know. Semien, I like Semien, but this just screams regression. Probably louder than any fantasy player from last year in terms of like how high they finished and where they'll finish this year. He leaves the number 2 park offensively, as we spoke about earlier, and the best lineup in baseball for an awful Texas lineup after, 4, yeah, they're bottom. Texas is like bottom 5 for pitching park. So he's going from the number 2 hitting park to a bottom 5 hitting park. I'm just not. They're having him project as a top 25 overall pitching and hitting finish. There's no way. Muncy is reported lingering elbow issues from last year's injury. Never great news to hear from a hitter. It sounds simple, but his season comes down to an elbow. Full-time DH could probably certainly help the elbow. McMahon, every year he gets so much hype and just really has yet to produce it. He's a nice bench piece, course field piece, but nothing more than that, in my opinion. He's not a starter. 6 years, 70 million, but they let Story walk. How anyone can explain that to me? I don't know. Wisdom, still an open competition for DH. He lost out on the third base battle with Villar. Tons of power, tons of strikeouts, and an awful lineup. Solo shots don't provide great points. 242 projection for a starter, disaster. Dansby Swanson coming off a career year. The lineup does lose some boom with Freeman going to the Dodgers, obviously, but I think it's Swanson that we've been waiting for. Like 474 seems quite off for me. That's more 550-ish, I would say. Lane Thomas, more of a bench player, in my opinion. He was awful, then he was great. He really beat up lefties and then did nothing versus righties. Does he hold off Stevenson all year, batting 250 versus the primary pitching hand at 79% rate in MLB starters? I don't know. I mean, why would you have a guy in there that can't hit that, off of what you're going to see 79% of the time? Acuna, obviously, sooner the better. I think at this point in time, he's probably the best player in baseball. I know, Paz doesn't agree, but I saw today that for the first month that he does return, whenever he returns, he's only going to DH. So you're getting rid of defensive points. And everyone just, when you come off an injury like that, you're scared to rush back. So that's a concern this year too. Maybe that, and this year ends up, I don't want to say be a wash for him, but kind of just more of a recovery season, extra days off and more DH time. Sheets, his starting DH. The Cubs manager already said he's only going to play versus righties. So now you have a DH that is only hitting righties. That's a concern. I know the universal DH, but it's just something to be worried about. And then down to his pitching, the rest, Minot, or that's how you say it. He's from WVU. Followed him a little bit. Ork loves him a little bit more than I do. We kind of went back and forth in text about how he was going to keep his guys in order. Last year's number jump out as one of the luckiest pitchers with balls in play, with analytics in the entire MLB. And he also tosses, I know I keep bringing this up, I hate to be repetitive, but he's throwing in the number 2 stadium in all of baseball. So it's something to monitor definitely closely. I'd like to see how his luck kind of evens out this year and being in that stadium. Verlander, a known spider tack user to prolong his ace career after it plummeted. He returns from 2 years from Tommy John, hasn't pitched in 2 years, and Ork drafted him before 62 other starters that were ranked higher than him. This is one of those picks I was talking about earlier. I just don't get. When his name came through the text, I thought O'Rourke was joking around. So I don't get this pick at all. And if they're outlawing spider tack, and I saw he's doing more rules and more shit, he's outlawing Manfred. This is a massive question mark, and I don't get the pick, and I'm not sure if he's, he may be good, but to be your, one of your top starters to pick in the second, I think he took him in the second round, crazy. Casey Mize, another pitcher getting massive hype with a ton of luck numbers. He was overall last year bottom 10 in strikeout rate. He was top 10 in luck with balls in play. So I need to see a full season without both those numbers to be my fifth starter for relevance, especially in Detroit's offensive support. He's going to lose out on wins. And then last but not least, Bailey Ober. I can't rely on a starter that only throws 3 pitches. I think, and I'm surprised that Work would too. He's usually big time on stuff like that. He's got a 3-pitch repertoire. And then I read today in his little profile that 87% of his fastballs are in the zone and not in the blue spots, which if people don't know that, that's the spots you do not want your fastball to be. So if players didn't know to hop on the fastball that he was laying up over last year, that's not overpowering. They certainly will this year in an analytical world. So he is a complete no thanks. And I can't imagine him being on Ork's roster at the end of the month. That's all I got for his team. And I have him at 8. And just pause. Tell me where you have Jimmy and O'Rourke.
So I had Jimmy at 9 as well. I think O'Rourke's team sort of comes down to what is Casey Mize, because we have been hearing about him, I think now for this probably year 2 or 3 that we've been hearing about him. Um, is he the next coming? If he's really good, then O'Rourke's team can go far. I think Burns is obviously, top 5 pitcher in the league. Logan Webb showed that he is a great pitcher, pitches in a good park. Manoa, I think he definitely has to prove it again. He's another one of those sophomore slump guys that, had his breakout year last year, but now there's tape out there on him. We'll see what happens. Walker Bueller, obviously a stud. Just to confirm, Verlander, he was actually taken in the first round. So yes, I don't agree there. I just don't know what to expect from a guy that's 30, 38, I think, at this point. And like you said, hasn't pitched in 2 years. Bailey Ober, don't really know much about him. So yeah, question mark. Joe Ryan, I mean, same thing. Like these two guys, I don't know if they'll be on a roster come end of April / mid May. So that could be an issue there. But hitting wise, his outfield is great. Between Castellanos, Acuna, Soto, and Tucker, you're probably not going to get. I forget what number you gave his outfield, but I don't think you have a better outfield in
Number
in the
2.
league. Yeah,
That's only because I don't know about when Acuna's coming.
right. Fair enough. Yeah, even just an above average season for Acuna, I think still makes this the top outfielder in the league. But yeah, I think I have him a little higher than you do. I probably have him in the 6 range, but there's a lot of question marks for me.
Okay. So now let's see. So I kind of did 3 tiers. So I had 8, 9, and 10 were kind of like a last tier, and now this, I'd say 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, and 7 are all split. 4, 5, 6, and 7 now here are all split by exactly 200 points. 4 to 5 is a little over 100. 5 to 6 is like 30, and 6 to 7 are split by like 20. So this 4, 5, 6, 7 here, I feel like are all interchangeable. Toss them in a hat. For now, I'm gonna go with 7, McIndoe, private nipple shot. Proud of Mac, man. He was quick this year. He did a lot of this on his own. He really didn't ask for way less opinions than last year. He took some crazy things late. But besides that, let's see. I have him as the 3rd best infield, the 9th best outfield, kind of like O'Rourke, except opposite, but still like one side is very, very heavily downgraded while one side's up. Giving him the 5th overall offense, 6th in starting pitching, 6th in bullpen, 6th overall staff, and that leads him to 7 total. See, the notes get shorter as we go along here because there's less. I think I did a little bit more negative than positive. I don't really need to speak on great players. So for McIndoe, my note on him was, what was my note on O'Rourke? My note on O'Rourke is where the infield at, and my note on McIndoe, exactly the opposite, is what's an outfield. So Vasquez to start, lost his power last year. He's better than in a lineup that also got better. So I think he's top 7 potential. Goldschmidt returned to form last year. Like Vasquez, lineup got better. Should see some of the same despite his age increase. Josh Bell, I loved him last year. He was super solid. He was really played huge for me despite the live ball being dead last year. He actually got better. I think 482 is a complete nonsense number. Brandon Lowe had a really, really bad start and still almost had 40 home runs. I don't know if you knew that. I had no idea he had 39 home runs last year. Like that, when I clicked his profile, that was shocking.
I don't think I knew that he had 39 home runs either, but I knew he had a great like second half and he was on a tear. I did not realize.
Which is so crazy because he was so bad in the first half that McIndoe was like, thank God I didn't keep him. And I'm like, yeah, dude, thank God you didn't keep him. He's terrible. I did not know he hit that many. And then he had a great year prior to that. Granted, it was the COVID year, but when they correlated his games, like over however they do it, you hit this many over 60, this how many you would hit over 182, it came out to 36. So, if you believe in that he's got a 36 and a 39 home run in the last 2 years. So is this, to me, this is almost like kind of like, is this the next Brian Dozier, Dan Uggla type of guy? A steal, I think, in my opinion, 42 is very low for a guy that hits that many home runs, especially Tampa Bay. Somehow they always find a way. They always have guys on, always end up having a top 10 lineup analytically. So the combo of Kevin Smith, Kevin Biggio, like both are in a potential timeshare, like I think with each other too. But sorry. And they're both really not starters in terms of fantasy to date. So something needs to be fixed there because one of the or Kevin Smith went to Oakland. They were in a timeshare with each other. Biggio is going to be in a timeshare at third now with Chapman, and the GM says he has to get at bats, but he's only going to split. Probably end up losing out if he plays like he did last year. And then now Kevin Smith is also in a timeshare in Oakland. So he's got to figure something out there. Both, in my opinion, aren't even ownable. Luis Arraez, the coach says he refuses to play him in the outfield this year. He lost his starting third base spot to Urshela when they made that trade, and Polanco plays second. So that kind of indicates to me that 352 is about right. Super concerning. That's 352 is a bench player. Winker, I love him as a player. Potentially on point statistically. I thought when I first saw it, like 454 is low, but then like now as I'm looking at it, he gets traded to Seattle. It's a bottom 5 park to hit in. He goes away from Cincinnati is notoriously like top 3, 4, 5th best place to hit. So he definitely loses some points leaving the sandbox and going to Seattle, but he should be all right. McCutchen, he's being relegated to DH only. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing in my opinion. The bad is he loses all putouts in a popular left field position for outfielders. Like a lot of balls go out there. There's a lot of pull happy guys. So like left field's a decent place to be in terms of outfield defensive points. I'm not saying you're going to get more there than shortstop or whatever, but if you're going to be in one of the 3 spots, you kind of want to be in left. It has the most action in terms of us getting putouts. The good though is like, can he increase some of his putrid stats since his ACL injury 2 years ago, only having to, walk out onto the field 4 or 5 times a game instead of having to run around left field. So that'll be interesting to watch because if he get his bat back, that'd be great. And then he's going to be DH eligible. Mount Castle 402. I wrote here top 5 most undervalued player that I've ever seen. If you take out 1 month of his rookie year, and actually he ends up having 2 rookie years because the COVID one didn't count. If you take out 1 month of those 2, all his production, the 2 rookie years, he ends up being a top 25 offensive player in both the years. So pretty crazy stat that I read in my magazine. And then down to his pitching. Anthony DeSclafani, I just don't know why he's getting hated on. He had an elite 2020, he had an elite 2021, and somehow everyone's still talking about 2019 with no stats to back it up. Everyone else, I really, I love Max Fried. He's an ace. Valdez is Houston's new ace. Cease, I'm pissed that he got him before me. He's an ace. Marquez is solid. Ian Anderson had a great finish. He's solid. Zach Greinke is like not good in MLB, but he's a compiler for fantasy. And then Sale, I saw got cleared today with an MRI. So like, this is a pretty solid staff. He's got like, I always say like, you really want to have like the 5-3, and he's got, in my opinion, like a questionable like 6'2", maybe even Ian Anderson. And I guess you could consider Greinke a 6 because he is a compiler for fantasy. So he's kind of got like a 6'2" here. I like the staff and I like the infield a lot. The outfield is just so bad that it really weighs down his team. But like I said, the 7, 6, 5, 4 here are split between 200 points, which is picking hairs. So maybe a couple changes or someone steps up differently and he slides in. Pause. Your thoughts on Mac and his rank?
Yeah, I actually really like this team. I think Vasquez is just a placeholder for Rutschman, and yes, again, a rookie. We don't know what he's going to be, but he's being built up as the next best thing. So I don't foresee Vasquez being his catcher for too long. Goldschmidt is Goldschmidt. I think Bell has a bounce back year. Lau is what he is. Wong is actually sneaky really good. Jose Ramirez, great. Don't like Kevin Smith, of course, like as you said, the Biggio Kevin Smith thing. But look, ultimately, whoever's hitting there is going to have a lot of protection with that whole lineup. So I could foresee them, combined putting up a good season. So if if he just follows when to play the correct guys, then switches them out correctly when one's starting and when isn't. Ultimately that one spot could be held by two people. I think McNeil has a bounce back season. I like Seager, of course, Seager. Winker, I think, has another good year. Canna, I think he has a good year as well. I like this team. I actually had him at 5.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. They're super interchangeable. So I like this team a lot too. I really like, I think he emphasized pitching a little bit more, made those big trades in order for him to be able to keep Fried, not have to break Hendricks. Delta Grom got Valdez over there from May. So I like what he did here. He was very active in the offseason, which I always enjoy because I don't know. That's kind of half of my favorite part, or 75% of my favorite part of doing fantasy baseball is the offseason. So, all right. To 6. I have Soriano at 6. My note for Soriano, forgot about starting pitching, not pitching. Soriano, 7th infield, 6th outfield, 7th overall offensive ranking, 9th in starters, number 1 in bullpen. And the bullpen brings him up to 5 in pitching and then leaves him at 6 overall. My notes on Sori. DJ LeMahieu statistically, signs would point to a rebound, as he's kind of a bit of a seesaw player, which I didn't really notice until I kind of overviewed his thing. Had a really bad 19 and then had a great 20 and then a bad 21. And then you would think he would have a 20 here. He kind of seesaws like that. Never really realized that. My only concern is where is he playing consistently? This is something all of us Yankee fans talked about. You don't re-sign Rizzo if, they're never going to Cashman, gargles Torres. I just don't know how they're going to handle consistent playing time. Is Donaldson going to go down early and then he takes over third? I don't know. So that's my only concern with him. Enrique Hernandez, way better than 459. Another guy that kind of as we'll get to later, you need to have kind of be healthy and also have some luck. He has a lot of guys for me that when I lost guys last year, I got really lucky. Enrique Hernandez, Josh Harrison, Pavin Smith, these were guys that Joey Wendell carried my team last year, and it takes some luck like that on the waiver wire. Robbie Grossman, I traded him away, but another guy you have 5 guys that just carried my team last year, so it to win, and it takes some luck like that along with some health. But anyway, neither here nor there. Enrique's way better than 459. He will out hit that. That's a nice pick by Sori. Josh Rojas. I didn't realize how solid his year was after returning for the minors. That's a really nice piece. I think he'll outscore the 421. He had a really solid year. Arenado, I saw a stat. He's one of the unluckiest offensive players in the MLB last year. I don't think he returns to Colorado form ever, obviously, but if you draw a top line on those years and then a bottom line on last year being unlucky, and you draw something in the median of those two, that's I think where his kind of season lines up this year, which would be a very formidable year and a very good lineup. Josh Harrison, it's kind of, I just mentioned this a couple minutes ago. I understand he had a bad second half and he was in one of the worst hitters ballparks for that bad second half after he got traded. But, he was so good until that trade, so good. He's going to start full time at second base now. He's in Chicago, in the good Chicago park to hit in. And he's going to hit in front of Abreu. So 368, in my opinion, is super silly because Abreu is good for freaking 30 and 100 and plus every single year. So to think that, what did they have Matt runs there? God, my eyes are so bad. Only 52 runs. How is he going to bat in front of Abreu, only score 52 runs? So he'll outscore that 369. I think Soriano gets a shaft there. Peralta, this is kind of where it takes a hit downhill. Peralta has gotten worse every single year. Both Paz and I said last year he's a bench player. He cannot be a starter again. He had 8 total home runs last year. So Paz and I were right last year. I don't know why Soriano picked him again this year. Pavin Smith, he was a great story in the first half. I had him. He had an atrocious second half. He's been constantly talked about as a defensive liability. And the coach says now he doesn't have a true position. So while the numbers were really great in the first half, the second was so bad, he ended up finishing under and worse than his 2020 numbers. So The eligibility for this season helps, but in terms of the amount of positions, but it looks like he's going to be a fill-in, not a starter. Tatis, my worry here is like, I don't care about the length of time. It's a wrist. And I know I hate to be repetitive, but from an offensive player standpoint, you don't want to hear three things: wrist, hand, oblique. And in my opinion, I think Tatis ends up being a wash for 2020, which is a huge loss for Soriano now, but like in the future, he has him for life. So, you take a hit for later, I guess, type of thing. Trey Mancini, he had career highs in every category last year until he started to clearly have fatigue from some of his lingering cancer treatments. I think 425 is an awful prediction for him for like an Orioles team that honestly continues to get better with youth. He'll outscore that. I like him there a lot better, more closer to 600. Down to his pitching. I love Suzuki. I saw he dropped the bomb the other day, by the way. Just a side note, Soriano snagged him 2 picks before me. Castillo, bad start attributed to the unluckiest pitcher with balls in play over his first 10 starts and everybody in the MLB. He settled back into form after that, but had the lowest run support in the league for a starter, which led to only 8 wins total on the season last year. He was on the trade block all year, all summer. I thought maybe the Yankees would be in on him, and he'll probably be gone by the All-Star break and definitely will be better elsewhere. He's still an ace in my opinion, but now I just saw a thing like as we were literally logging on that he's hurt again already. So I don't know what that day-to-day is. I didn't get to click the RotoWire thing. You want to click and just see what he's injured with now?
Shoulder open on the injured list. That's not good.
Shoulder soreness. So now he's already batting a shoulder injury. So this would be another huge loss for Soriano because as I kind of go through a couple of these guys here, I don't really love this staff, and this will be a loss. Stroman moves to a Cubs. It really hurts his value. You're leaving arguably, with the Dodgers, one of the best teams in MLB this year based on Vegas odds, to the Cubs, who were projected to be the fourth worst team in all of baseball. He's a formidable pitcher, but this is supposed to be the number 2 starter on Soriano's staff. That's a big concern. Savelli, really as close to a roller coaster as it gets. Started his career bad, finished that season better than anyone. Started off last season better than all but 8 pitchers, then got hurt and finished worse than anyone. So your guess is as good as mine. Gonsolin is still fighting for the job, hasn't been able, still healthy enough. He's never thrown more than 82 innings in 4 years of his career. That's a big yikes. And then Bradley Singer is just not ownable. So that's why I have Soriano at 6. Pause.
I really don't like this team very much. Outside of Olsen, Arenado, and Harper, obviously we don't know what we're going to get from Suzuki, so he's sort of like the wild card. I think DJ does have a bounce back, and Kike Hernandez is definitely undervalued. But don't like Stevenson, don't like Rojas, don't like Harrison. I think Tim Anderson is one of the more overrated players in all of baseball. Kiner Falefa is just he's not gonna hit. He doesn't hit. Outfield here is really bad. Tatis is gonna do nothing this year. Grossman, not a fan. Mancini, I think this number is a little low. I agree with you there. Bench wise, there's really not much to talk about here outside of Joey Wendell, who could just be like a solid filling guy. And this staff is not good. So I have him at 8th.
Okay. 5. I have Jorge. My note for him is what's an infield. 8th worst infield. 3rd best outfield, overall offense 6, 4th starting pitching staff, 7th bullpen, 4th overall pitching, and that leads him to number 5. Hosmer, not ownable in my opinion. He already lost 52 starts last year to other players, and now the Padres got Luke Voit. I just think Hosmer's days are numbered. Thankfully, first base is always a deep position, but he's just not ownable. Javier Baez, no thanks. He leaves the best lineup in baseball this year for one of the worst lineups in baseball this year, and now he's getting hype about how good he was over 3 weeks last year, but everyone forgets about his first half and the beginning of the second half. Crazy. Justin Turner, he's in a 3-way timeshare for 2 spots. He's 39 years old. You're going to have to check on him daily. He's the worst starting and monitoring these days. I'd say no. Chapman moves to the best lineup in baseball, but it comes at a cost of a timeshare at Biggio, who the owner said must play also. So does one win the job through the season? Maybe, but like that's a massive cap to already, over a year and year decline for him, for Chapman. Like, and now he's in a, you have to watch him in a timeshare. Like that can't be a starting third baseman for you. So now you have two starting third basemen in a timeshare, a first baseman in a timeshare. So three guys in your infield are all in a timeshare. Or just not going to be playing. Brendan Rodgers, shortstop. He's never healthy. He has worse splits at home and cores than away, which I honestly didn't think could ever be possible for anybody. He's a bench player at best. Pena, he's never sniffed a big league pitch in his entire career. And the sample size I call him a big prospect on came over 21 AAA games, and where he batted like 303. So in AAA in 21 games, now he's this touted great shortstop for Houston. No, thank you. So to me, he's got two guys you can't play at shortstop. He's got three guys in a timeshare and a first baseman that's losing his job. So outside of Guerrero Jr., Escobar, who might end up not splitting time with JD Davis, but losing starts JD Davis, like this infield is so bad. Gurriel, one can't possibly put up atrocious numbers in the best hitting statement in the MLB, can they? Gurriel did. He's a bench player. Take out the last month, he's can't even be owned as a bench player. Lewis Robert downgrading points of one injury in his career seems pretty drastic by ESPN. 484 is laughable. He'll be well over that, and probably a top 15 outfielder. Trout, big question for me, honestly. Like, he hasn't been able to play, which I didn't realize, hasn't been able to play more than 140 games in the last 5 years. All different types of injuries. Angels manager said they're not going to let him steal anymore, and he still's got to run around center field. So he's at the mid top 15 outfielders and out of the top 30 at this stage in his career, I think. Gossman, down to his pitching. I understand he's having like a mid-career adjustment. He also just like he left the third best pitching park for the worst pitching park, left a division that's in, resurgence with really one offense. And is coming to probably, in my opinion, the best overall offensive division in all of baseball. This just screams like back to form for me. You're certainly not seeing a sub 3.5 ERA in the AL East with those offenses. That's for sure. And that's really concerning me because that's Jorge's number 2 or maybe number 3. And then, last year, a major concern for me. He in the top of the magazine, it said he was the luckiest pitcher of balls in play and hard hit balls, and also weather affecting his balls in both 2020 and 2021. So that to me just seems a regression also, and that's supposed to be either Jorge's 3 or 4, depending on where you put Gossman. So I'm, not much. I like the other pieces he has surrounding them, but like he's got to do something with the infield, and he's got to supplement like 3 or 4 of these starting pitchers. Pause.
Yeah, it's funny seeing Gosman with Toronto next to his name. I completely forgot that the Blue Jays signed him. I don't know what happened, but completely forgot that he was on the Blue Jays. I like the top of this staff. I think Clevenger has a bounce back year. I think Bassett has a very good year. I think Giolito has a bounce back year as well. Severino, I think he'll be okay this year. I don't know why. I guess he's just a reliever because that's all he did last year. I know he was obviously out with the Tommy John from the previous year, but I assume he'll end up in this starting pitching slot after whatever 2 weeks of the season. As far as hitting goes, I do like this lineup, I think, a little bit more than you do. But you have him at 5, I think. I would still slot him into 7 because I'm very unconvinced by Baez, Hosmer, Escobar, Chapman. I'm really down on Chapman. Rogers, I actually think I'm a little higher on than you, but because I think he's still really young and he's still trying to figure out his slot in the major leagues. And I think he'll do that this year. Robert is super, like, if you want to talk about Baez being not disciplined at the plate, Luis Robert is not that far behind Baez, which is saying a lot. I think that he's going to get found out this year. So you're saying that you think this number is laughable. I think this number might be laughable from being too high. I think he might be more hovering around a high 2s to very low 3s average per game. So we can take a little wager on that if you want. We can put a little side bet on that. But I think Luis Robert is one of the players that drastically underperforms this year. So for that reason, and also Trout, once a guy starts having calf problems, that they're starting to get towards the end of their, the end of the top of their career, and that's what Trout is starting to deal with now. Those muscle injuries. I always remember it happening with like a guy on the Yankees like Johnny Damon. Like once he started getting to that like 30, 33, 34 range, he started having muscle problems, and those muscle issues just start to happen when you get older. And I think that's the one concern for Trout. But when he's healthy, he's still the best player in baseball. So yeah, I have this team at 7.
Okay. At 4, I got my dad. My note for him is infield over everything. I have him as the number 1 infield in the league, the 8th outfield, the 2nd overall offense, 8th in starting pitching, 8th in bullpen, and 8th overall staff, and the 4th best team. So I wrote a lot of notes on his team for some reason. All right. From the top, so Ty France, I ultimately want to keep him, but I just ran out of spots with other players that, in my opinion, I had more value. A top 75 player with 3, 4 in 10 days. He'll have 4 position eligibility in 10 days is impossible to find in fantasy baseball. So it's a good trade by my dad, especially since, I never put the picks in for myself. So he basically got Ty France for free. Alonso, under the radar, great year, even more so in the contact department compared to previous years. The lineup got drastically better from top to bottom. The more he plays first base and stacks those defensive hoists, the closer he finishes to probably the top 40. But the more the DH is kind of the less useful he becomes, because then he just, as we talked about, has to have an elite offensive year to make up for, the 150 defensive points that he'll be losing out on or more. Tommy Edman, interesting situation here. I didn't see this till today. A player everyone wanted to trade for last year in our league. In addition to, I know a lot of people asked my dad about him in the offseason for keeper purposes. The Cardinals' new manager is overly concerned about his barrel contact power rate. I guess he's a very big analytical guy. I don't even know who their new manager is. Anyway, Edman hasn't helped himself. He's 1 for 20 in spring training and now is potentially in a timeshare or on the wrong side of a split with this young prospect named Sosa. So this could be a disastrous blow to dad if he loses a top 30 preseason offensive player. I think he was actually even higher. I think he was like 21 in all of offense. So that would be a huge loss. It's something to monitor. Polanco, I really like Polanco. I feel like I have him every year. Solid dual eligible player in 2 weak spots in terms of fantasy. I'll say this though, his fastball over everything. And if you think pitchers are going to continue to go off speed or not throw off speed to him, I think you're kind of crazy. The 519 projection seems spot on, which is fine, but top 7 at either position is unlikely in my opinion, as he was last year. Bryant, I'm mixed on. Half of me says he's not the same player anymore. That's shown over the last 4 years. The other half of me says he's in Coors Field. If I had another half of that, I would say like, why pitch to him? Because there's nobody else in that lineup. Torres, I'm not going to speak much on Glaber. Again, I don't understand the dynamic, who's playing where, when. Shortstop definitely ruined them. Paz and I both called that in the last prediction. I don't know, man. Like, he's not going to be a 30 home run hitter again. I'll bet anyone that. I tried to bet Paz that and my cousin, they would have lost, but I don't know. I don't know what 393, like he's probably going to do better than that, but I don't know. Taylor, always arguably one of the most useful, arguably, if not the most useful, one of the most useful players in fantasy baseball, multiple position eligibility, gets the job done, like 392, usually more of a bench guy, but he gives you the option to spread him around. Badu appears to continue to play a platoon role only this year, as he cannot hit lefties still, which makes him a good bench piece, but he shouldn't be a starter. For Dugo, I didn't keep him because there's a concern he may be in a timeshare also after his splits versus lefties last year. I learned that the hard way because I had to log on every single day he played to make sure he fit. Although it says analytically it was mostly due to bad luck, but towards the end of the year, like I said, he was getting put on the bench versus any lefty. So that's going to be interesting if he's going to be in a full-time share or just a lefty versus lefty. Carlson, this is kind of what I talked about with Edman. It's interesting to watch in the spring training shakeout because Carlson is now going to be the replacement for Edman as the leadoff. And his numbers are just not impressive. So I understand the age, but I don't know how you improve stealing and being bottom 9% of hard contact rate in the entire MLB. So he's a hard pass for me. Killaroff, interesting player, suffered and dreaded a wrist injury last year, which I spoke about earlier. Crushed his numbers, ultimately finished with season-ending surgery. Could be a nice late piece if he comes back to 2020 playoff and early 21 pre-injury form. Springer. I thought Springer was primed for a top 15 season at the least in that lineup last year. Injuries derailed the whole year. What appeared to be an outlier, never watching Houston. He's actually only been able to play 140 games on his career, never more than 140. I did not know that. Very concerning, as it appears throughout his entire career, it's 2 to 3 IL stints a year, becoming the norm for him. Therefore, he ultimately may never be able to take advantage hitting on top of the best lineup in all of baseball. So drafted way too early for me from then that my dad did. 446 would be bottom 100 ESPN predictions, and he's injury prone. Down to the pitching, Wainwright, like, old guy keeps on ticking. Does he have one more with these sub-4 numbers? One more year. He said he's going to retire at the end of the year. So I don't know. Why not? Robbie Ray, drastic turnaround season over season. He settles into a pitcher's dream. So if he sticks to the gym regimen, he continues to talk about these 2-a-days that he's doing in that park, a top 10 finish again, honestly, isn't out of the question. Irvin, prospect pitcher, he could be a nice piece, but his successful season came to a screeching halt as teams caught on to his pitches. He doesn't really have anything overpowering. He's kind of finesse guy like Nestor Cortez. So I don't know. Can he change some things to get back to early form? I don't know. Cal Cantrell, he was a swingman all last year. He moves in the rotation now. Hard to know what to expect. Regardless, Dad got good value on him. If he's successful in the swing rate miss that he continues to have, and it translate over, it's a good late pick. Plesac, I'm starting to think this is kind of a guy that's just an absolute head case, honestly. First, the COVID strip club suspension, then he fractured his thumb last year, taking off his shirt too hard because he was pissed. Obviously, the physical talent is there, but the mental just might be long gone. Walker, I understand Dad's a Met fan, but I think this is a waste of pick. He's never healthy. He's only surpassed 65 and a half innings one time in the last 4 years. When he's healthy last year, he had a 4.43 and an awful 582 at Citi Field, where he'll roughly throw 15 if he's healthy. So not good. And Miley enters a way better pitching stadium, all but leaving the only pitching coach. Apparently, he's only been ever successful with this pitching coach. So interesting to follow, but I mean, that's Dad's 8th pitcher. So that's honestly, there's way, way worse to have in your 8th spot. So I got Dad at 4. Pause.
Yeah, just a quick note, what I was saying about Baez and Robert, chase rates. Baez's career chase rate is 42.5%. And Luis Robert is coming in closely at 39.7%. So just a little hesitation there with the Robert train of everyone thinking he's the next best thing. Quickly here, really like the pitching staff. I think your dad's going to have a big turnaround this season. Last year, he was just derailed completely by injuries. And I think that changes here. I have him as the 4th best team as well. But yeah, I think he's primed and ready for a very, very nice season here.
Okay. At 3, I got Bob, and my note for his team is, hey, pitcher. 6th infield, 5th outfield, 4th overall offense, 3rd starters, 3rd relievers, 3rd overall staff, and then 3rd overall. Not many notes for Bob. Santana, for Carlos, he completely lost his power in back-to-back seasons. People use COVID as 2020 for an excuse. He dropped even lower slugging percentage last year to 342. That's really bad. Doesn't really leave much for another excuse. In addition, the number 12 prospect in all of baseball, Nick Pratto, they already said that he's going to replace Santana sometime this year. So Bob will, first base is deep, but Bob will have to find something. Moncado, he had 2 record-breaking stats last year. Unfortunately, both not good ones, and both on base percentage plus and run scored per plate appearances. He led them being dead last. And that led him to being dropped to 8th in the order, which is a huge drop down in that lineup. A bench piece probably with this new lineup spot. Lopez, I looked at Nicky so many times. I just couldn't pull the plug. He was great. Then he was absolutely awful. And then he got demoted, and then he came back and he was great. Mondesi is back, and they said he's going to be in a timeshare. Witt starting. Is it a timeshare? I don't know. We talked about the Witt situation, the Witt Lopez Mondesi situation earlier. I don't know what's going to happen there. Garcia, yearly the most surprising player in all fantasy baseball. I think like every single year I'm always like, how, when, how, why, and he just ends up being solid. solid. Lariano off for essentially an entire year with the PEDs and now 27 additionally this year. He's not even allowed to get up to game speed and like practice or hit with them or anything. So I kind of think he's a wash this year. I'm surprised to see him on a team, to be honest. Reyes, for Mio, ground ball rate 67.7 or his ground ball rate and 67.2% contact rank went fifth worst in the MLB with 1,500 plate appearances over the last 4 years. He also strikes out once per game on average, and he's only DH eligible. So he's kind of questionable in our type of league, especially with the universal DH to even own at this point. And then I only had one comment about his pitchers. Gallen, I think he's set up for a huge rebound year. He was great the first season. He had multiple injuries last year, but once fully healthy at the end of last year, he really dominated the year again. He comes into spring fully healthy, and I think 580, 5.8 is a real awful number. I love this staff, like Nola, ace, Julio, ace, Montas, ace, Gallen, rebound year, Rue, solid for a 5, Marco, solid for a 6, Syndergaard should be more in the 500s, I would think. And then Alex Wood, he'll be replaced and gone. And I saw Hunter Green is going to start the season. So maybe there you go. There's a perfect example. Hunter Green's going to start in the rotation. I think he might even start starting opening day. So throw Hunter Green in there. If he has a Mano, a Bueller, someone type of a Corbin Burns type of year, a Freddie Peralta, like I have type of year like that, and replaces Alex Wood, the staff is even better. So I got Bobby at 3.
I think I agree with you at him at 3. I have a few reservations about this team, but I think if Noah Syndergaard can get through a full season, I think he'll be in the high 500s, and I think that could be a real key to his team going far. I think guys like Jock Peterson and Eugenio Suarez and Conforto, who knows what will happen with him, but I think these are guys that can have bounce back seasons. Suarez especially, I know he's had 2 really bad seasons in a row, but I feel like that Seattle team is, everyone loves them and they're all about them and they're young. I think he could fit in nicely there and have a nice bounce back. You kind of know what you're getting with all of these other players here, and it's just a solid team, really no holes anywhere. I'm expecting Judge to have another MVP caliber season, so I think this number is probably a little low as well. So yeah, 3 for me as well.
All right. 2, I have Mike, and my note for him is could be better. I thought he could do way better with his extra picks, but still packs a punch. 4th infield, 4th outfield, 3rd offense, 2nd best staff, 2nd best relief, and then overall 2. Like I kind of had you look it up before we logged on, like to waste a 4th round pick on Salvador Perez and a extra 8th round pick on Melee is just, to me, a complete waste. There are way better players there, and he's just another team that just got so many prospects just for no reason. You ultimately can only keep 2 or 3 at the end of the day, unless you want to spend money. So really 2. And I don't know. He has a great team. Obviously, that's why I have him at 2, but I just thought he could do way better with what he had in terms of extra stuff. You're talking like 700-point players passed up for Salvador Perez, who's projected to score 428, which is probably what a top catcher scores, 428. So that's like a 300-point swing. What's Tyler? Could you just go look at what Tyler Melee? I know we gotta like speed up, but could you just like what is like 616? There had to be like a 700-point pitcher available at that point in time. So I don't know. Those are just 2 wastes to me. But anyway. My note on Perez, simple, way too early. How's he going to rebound with nobody? Riley, he was extremely lucky last year. I expect a lot of regression from him. He was the 7th luckiest player in all of baseball with balls in play last year. Donaldson, he's hurt every single year, probably in a better lineup. But again, I don't know what they're going to do with these 5 guys, like interchanging them. So Fletcher, not a starting shortstop in any fantasy baseball league. He's projected to score nearly 20th for the position. And this kind of hints at my title. Like you had so many extra picks. You got to be able to do better than he had double 8s too. So we don't have to go look at that, but he had Yuri and Oryx 8 and his own 8. So Witt Jr., I understand the hype, but the instant successes of like Wander Franco times are like a dime a dozen. So I don't understand why he had the extra picks and he throws all his eggs in one basket this year when you're going to hold him forever and not acquire at least one real shortstop. So his two shortstops are David Fletcher, who's not a starting shortstop, and Witt. So if Witt ends up having to go into the arbitration thing, he has no shortstop, and shortstops are impossible to find. So this is kind of like my theme where like, yes, you have a great team, but like, how do you not get one solid starting shortstop when you have four extra picks in the first 8 rounds? Meadows took a step back in every single offensive statistical category last year. He's 27, not 22. He can't be counted on as a starter, in my opinion, anymore, especially with 2 years straight of lefty on lefty issues. And Tampa's analytical approach are opposite hands. Now he continues to sit versus lefties every single time they're out there. Bellinger is following up the worst year of his career. He was benched on multiple occasions and then apparently had a injury in quotes. To me, that sounds like a kind of like a mental refreshing and benching. He's 3 for 22 in the spring with 15 strikeouts. So now they're even more worried. So that's an issue. Tyler O'Neill, one of the 10 most undervalued players by ESPN. I think he flies by 458. I just missed on getting him. Byron Buxton, he's hurt every single year. Borderline waste to own. It's just a matter of time before he's on the DL. So do you thank him for like 300 points, I guess? Michael Brantley is as consistent as they come, but his batting average and power have digressed every single year. He's aged after his prime. 420 is probably on par at this point in his career. And then Max Kepler, he's in a platoon. Is he even ownable? I don't know. He always starts strong, but after that, nothing. And then I just like his rotation. I didn't write any comments about any of them, but they're just solid. Like Snell is solid, Morton solid, Woodruff great, Lynn is solid, Minaya is solid, Melee is solid. Baz should be great when he comes back from injury, and then Otani would be his 8th. So yeah, I have him at number 2. Kind of looking at it, maybe a little high, but I don't know. That's where he's at.
Yeah, I had him at 2 as well, but I think going back to it, I think I might shift him down a spot or two. But I do think that Perez is probably going to go past this 428. I think Trey Turner.
You think he scores 700 though? No, right?
Perez? No, he's not going to score.
Yeah,
700,
like so, like that.
but he'll score 600. He'll score
yeah, like
high 5s to 600.
Yeah, and I think that's my overall point on it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know, for a 4th round.
Yeah, I get it.
When you have double,
absolutely. Yep. Cody Bellinger, another thing here. He's done unless he drastically changes his mechanics. Cody Bellinger's career is over. He is you want to talk about free swinger and gonna barely make contact and hit a home run every once in a while. In like a guy like Javi Baez, Cody Bellinger is even worse than that. I think his career as we know it is over. He's not an MVP caliber player. He's a fringe roster player going forward unless he takes it to heart and really goes to work and just scraps everything that he knows and starts over. So I think this is going to hurt Mike very much here. But I think guys like O'Neill, I think Shohei, I think Rosarena, I think Buxton, when he's healthy, will be able to fill those roles. So I had him at 2 as well. But I think looking at this, I might flip flop him with your dad's team. I think I really like your dad's team a lot more now that I'm like really doing more in depth, like looking at teams. I'll be honest, I wasn't as prepared as I probably should have been for this. So I think I'd flip flop Mike and your dad, move your dad up to number 2, which is sickening to have the 2 Olsens in the top 2 spots. I hate to say it.
It's kind of sick. I didn't do any review on my team because last year you just did it for me. So I'll just say like I just made trades because I had to. I got lucky and I had so many pieces last year that allowed me to pick up a 10 and 19 and 20th and some other picks. So was able to get rid of Valdez and stuff. Peralta ended up being huge for me, which is something both you and I discussed in the prediction show last year. Yeah, I was able to really just supplement having keepers that were just all waiver wire pickups. So that's really all I have to say about my team, and I'll let you do the rest, and then it'll be it.
I mean, look, you're known for having pretty much you pretty much never have a hole in your lineup, whether it be offense or pitching. And I think that's what like looking at a roster from the start of the season, you sort of analyze where people have holes, where things look good, where things look bad. And always, as we've been doing these the past couple of years, that's the thing that I come to expect from your team, and it's the same thing this year. Like there's just no holes here. And I think from a preseason projection, that's why you have to be number one, because I just don't see any problems here. Scherzer's going to be really good. Wheeler's going to be really good. Alcantara's going to be really good. Freddie Peralta's going to be really good. Garcia, he might not be this good, but he's going to be really good. I know you're really high on Suarez. We spoke about him after you drafted him. Yeah, I trust you because you're usually really good with these things. Screwball, again, he's a guy I think I had on my roster multiple times last year. Dropped, picked up, dropped. Bauer, who knows, right? We talked about him at nauseum. I think, I kept saying to you, yeah, I think I might take him here, and then I didn't take him. And then you kept saying, I think I'm going to take him next, and then you didn't take him. So like, if he comes back and he's Trevor Bauer, then yeah, your eighth starter is, a top what, 10 player, top 10 pitcher in the league. So yeah. And then as far as lineup goes, I mean, guys like Mullins and Eddie Rosario and Segura and Madrigal, who I think is going to have a really, really nice season this year. Gurriel, I don't know if he can duplicate what he did last year, but yeah, I think this is, a 3.5 average per game for him is about right. Rizzo, same thing. It's just solid players. Ruiz, I know people are really high on him. And, he was a big piece of the Trey Turner trade. He was like the main piece that they wanted back. So yeah, I don't see why he can't be. I think he's having a decent spring so far. I don't see why he can't be another really solid player. Marte, I think, is gonna have another great year. Blackman, the addition of Chris Bryant really helps out Charlie Blackman. You have, Crone, Blackman, and Bryant there to sort of anchor the middle of that lineup. Bader, solid. Nelson Cruz, now that he can DH in the National League, good hitters park in Washington. Candelario, solid player. Schwindel came out of nowhere last year. We'll see what he does this year. Yeah, Gallo, I think he could have a nice bounce back season. It's always funny when, when someone drafts Gary Sanchez, because we always laugh about it. But yeah, look, I mean, maybe a change of scenery is what Sanchez needed. There's never really a question about if he gets hot, he can carry a team, and I don't see why he can't fit in well in that city, with a lot less scrutiny now, and another solid lineup around him. So yeah, no holes is what I dub your team as, and pretty much what I dub your team as every year. So for that reason, I have you number one as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, no one ever in the head-to-head there has gone back to back. So like I said, it takes health and then some luck from 5, 6, 7 guys that you don't think are going to do anything that do something. And I got lucky with that last year. So I probably don't finish one, but this is probably the most excited I think I've been about my fantasy baseball team to start the year, because I'm not a great drafter. I've always been a great waiver wire guy. You could see my keepers. I didn't have a pick from round like 12 to 18 because we use 18 as our keeper for free agents. So 18, 17 all the way down. So, but this is the most I've liked a team of mine that I've drafted, probably in maybe ever. I don't know. So I really like this team a lot. So it'll be exciting. So that kind of wraps it up. Let's run it down again. I got Paz at 10, Jimmy at 9, Orc at 8, Mac at 7, Soriano at 6, Jorge at 5, my dad at 4. Then I'm going to go Mike at 3, Bob at 2, and then myself at 1 to start off the year. Just run down yours and then sign us off.
Yep. You at 1, your dad at 2, Bob at 3, Mike at 4. I have to be honest, I don't remember exactly. I think I remember I had Soriano at 8, myself at 10.
I think you had Jorge at 5.
Yeah, Jorge at 5. So who's 6 and 9?
No, you had
have
Jorge
at 9?
at, yeah, you
Whoever
had
you
Jimmy
had
at 9.
I had at 9 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Jimmy at 9. Yeah.
Yep, Jimmy at 9, and then Orc at 6.
Okay, so we're pretty close. We're kind of in the same area. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I thank everyone for tuning in. Sorry we started late and then got rushed, but we're all good, man. This was good. It's always fun to get on here. This is probably my favorite part of fantasy baseball, this and the trading. But thanks for everyone who tuned in, and we'll send out the link. It'll be on replay so you can watch it again. And I don't know if we could hop on for the monthly stuff again. Maybe we'll get that done. And that's it. Right on pause.